It is Toronto Sports Rush Live with Dan and Kyle. And I came to the realization in life that if you score 21 games in 2 games, there's a good chance you will win 2 games. That's exactly what the Toronto Blue Jays did as they went into Seattle down 2 games to none. They have tied the series in a game that we are going to unpack. Kyle, where do you want to start? With the offense, with Scherzer, with Vladdy, with number 9 hitter hitting a 2-run shot for the second game in a row?
Dan, you basically just covered it all there, but I think we should stick with the offense because you brought it up. They're rolling once again. They started this series off extremely slow. The bats looked concerning, to say the least, after the way the season ended for them. And all of a sudden, they got on a plane and everything changed. And all of a sudden, the momentum is entirely theirs. They have multiple players performing way beyond expectations, from their highly paid superstar to guys that were on the bench not that long ago in their major league careers. This is a top to bottom performance. 2 straight games now. All 9 players in the starting lineup have reached base. It's a remarkable thing to watch. And the question now is that they've brought the series even, pardon me, can they keep the offense rolling?
Well, it was kickstarted for the second game in a row by Andres Jimenez, the number 9 hitter, who the Blue Jays were in a hole. He steps up, hits one out. Completely unexpected from that portion of the lineup. And the fact that he finished the game with 4 RBIs in game 4 is absolutely astounding. He picked up 2 RBIs on a ball that barely left the infield after John Schneider did a brilliant move, putting my guy in, the straw man, Miles Straw, to pinch run for Addison Barger. He makes it home from second on a ball that just got into the outfield. That again, Schneider's been unreal managing this baseball team. The moment that is catching everyone's eye, though, the moment that's going viral is when John Schneider paid a visit to Max Scherzer, and Max was wondering, is he actually going to take him out? And he started having a discussion with his manager before he got to the mound.
it was kind of an incredible moment. We've got a photo up on screen right now here, and you can see the exchange on the mound. Schneider said after the game, I thought he was going to kill me. And they're all saying this very tongue in cheek because they go on to win the game. We don't know how this would have been perceived had things not gone so well, but that's besides the point. The point here is the intensity he brought out to the mound was something Schneider had recognized was completely possible despite his struggles down the stretch. He turned back the clock, and on a night in which 40-plus-year-old males performed exceptionally in all of pro sports, Scherzer was indeed the standout star.
Scherzer, we discussed this in the lead up to the game. He knew what was on the line. He knew it could potentially be his last start in the majors because I don't believe he's going to play next year. He didn't want to go into retirement laying a shit salad. And that's exactly what he did. He left everything out there. And that is the Max Scherzer that John Schneider said he's been waiting for all year. Does he start another game? Only time will tell. And then the Blue Jays will have to advance to the World Series for that to happen. They have put themselves in position for that to happen, tied 2 games apiece as they now prepare for their next biggest game of the season, because the winner of game 5, um, they're in the driver's seat once again. And the Mariners, they were in control. We talk a lot about momentum, Kyle. Baseball is all about momentum, and it is clearly shifted to the Toronto Blue Jays.
Dan, it's always cliche to talk about a game at a time, but this is yet another circumstance where the Jays basically have to look and say, okay, now we've only drawn even. It's a best 2 of 3 series now. They can't be overconfident, and they haven't been. They've been well managed through these highs and lows towards the end of the season and into the playoffs so far. But the momentum is clearly theirs, and a win tonight would give them 2 more chances at home, and their 3 best pitchers are starting the next 3 games. It's looking good for them, but there is no guarantee, and there's all the speculation about would Scherzer get another start in these playoffs. Well, of course, as you say, they have to make the World Series, but it would be very hard to deny him that after last night's performance. I feel a Game 4 World Series start, should they be fortunate enough to get there, it almost seems like a certainty at this point. And we always talk about the theater of baseball. Well, that's about as much theater as you could ask for.
Vladdy Guerrero shows up again. He now leads the franchise in home runs in the postseason with 5. Remarkable. And the series will return to Toronto. There was questions whether there'd be another game played at Rogers Center. Or is it Rogers? Yeah, it's Rogers Center. I don't know. It's called the Skydome all the time.
Yeah.
They will return to Toronto no matter what, as we bring in Furzy, also known as Todd Fuhrman. Have the Jays odds to win the World Series? Have they gone up at all? Has this changed anything, Todd?
Well, Dan, I know you're new to this whole sports betting thing, but typically a team's odds to win the World Series do improve when a series is tied 2 games apiece compared to when you go on the road facing an 0-2 series deficit. So you would be correct in that particular assertion there. But when you look at this Jays team, guys, look, I think everyone kind of wrote them off for dead when they lost both of the first 2 games at home. They take things on the road. And as you guys mentioned at the top of the show, momentum seems to be just the next at bat in these Major League Baseball playoff series. And maybe if Toronto does find a way to win a pivotal Game 5, they can tell Major League Baseball, you know what? We're perfectly fine staying in the Pacific Northwest. We'd rather play Game 6 and Game 7 at a ballpark this year that's been very good to us instead of returning home and having to deal with all of that media scrutiny that's normally reserved for the Maple Leafs when we're talking about postseason failures.
Yep.
Todd, you say that in jest, but we have discussed on our after shows with Bobby Valentine. We've discussed on our morning show with Keegan Matheson, the MLB.com writer for the Blue Jays. You know, there's something to be said perhaps for getting out of the pressure cooker that was the city of Toronto and really the country of Canada. They're one of the few teams that has the pressure of an entire nation behind them. So maybe getting out there and getting relaxed. I think they will be more relaxed heading back home, but it's not a guarantee. But again, you make a pretty good point that maybe it wouldn't be the worst idea.
I think sometimes, guys, we see it all the time. Teams go out on the road. They can play loose and free when they're staring down the barrel of a series that's kind of gotten away from them. That's kind of what we've seen in Games 3 and Game 4. And you look, going all the way back to Game 3, Seattle gets out to that early lead, and you think it's going to be more of the same. But this is a Jays team that hasn't quit. They didn't have expectations coming into the year. They've clearly exceeded them. And I think them being able to set up their rotation the way they want, everything's starting to line up in their favor. Now, all that being said, if Kevin Gausman gets himself into trouble in the first inning of Game 5, all bets are off. But I think the Jays have to like the prospects of a potential, well, I guess not potential, what it is, a best 2 out of 3 now, knowing that they could have home field advantage shifting very much in their favor if they're able to sweep all 3 games up there in Seattle.
Seattle and Toronto essentially the same size market. Well, Toronto's bigger because it's got the entire country. But when you look at Milwaukee and LA, I have a lot of empathy and I am overflowing with it for Brewers fans because they're like, come on, man, this isn't fair. Even though they were the better team, the Brewers have scored 3 runs in 3 games and trailed the Dodgers 3-0.
It's wild to watch this Milwaukee offense go through a historic stretch of futility at the plate. They just can't manufacture runs. You're seeing the Dodgers, bigger names, start to raise their level of play. But where the real difference in this series is starting to show up is on the pitcher's mound. I mean, this Dodgers staff is finally healthy. We've seen their starters go deeper into games. We're seeing their depth arms get out there and perform. And while it's not quite an apples to apples comparison, you almost start to get the feeling when you look at the Dodgers in the postseason that they're becoming Major League Baseball's equivalent of the Florida Panthers. Just get into the tournament. We know we have the best players. We know we're built for games in higher leverage situations, and they're going to go out and perform. All that being said, I'm still not going to put Dave Roberts in the same breath as Paul Maurice when it comes to pulling the right strings. But full credit to the Dodgers for what they've been able to accomplish. And I have to imagine there are plenty of TV executives that would love nothing more than the Dodgers to get back to the Fall Classic and potentially take on the Toronto Blue Jays.
And I'll say it once, I'll say it a million times until the day I die. The Dodgers home whites are the greatest uniforms in all of sports.
Look, they're about as clean as you're going to find. And in this day and age where everybody wants to have all these bells and whistles, they want to have purples and teals and neons. I can respect the home whites for the Dodgers the same way I can the pinstripes for my beloved Yankees. But look, guys, I don't like to say nice things about the Jays. Those powder blues are pretty sweet that we've seen. And what would be better than seeing the iconic Dodger whites at home than the Toronto Blue Jays sporting the powder blues on the road in the World Series?
Todd, the Jays game tonight is a virtual pick 'em on Bet Rivers right now. So basically, whoever you like on the money line, you're going to return something okay. But looking down the list of types of bets you can put on tonight's game, the Jays offense has been sizzling, and yet their team total is still set at 3.5. It seems to me like with this streaky offense that does put up runs in bunches game after game after game, that's a pretty tempting take.
I mean, if you guys have a direct line to the commissioner's office, I'd love to know what kind of baseballs we were using for the game today, because we could get a 3-1 game, or who knows, maybe we're going to be blessed with a 12-8 slugfest. But you're right. You mentioned this Jays offense and how well they've been able to hit the baseball in the first 2 games in Seattle. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero is seeing the ball like it's a cantaloupe coming at him right now. I mean, his contact rate is through the roof, and everybody else on that Jays roster seems to be using that momentum and carrying it forward. So I would have no issues if people wanted to try and root for a little bit of offense and take that Jays team total over 3.5. The interesting dynamic, though, that'll be in play here, I think both of these managers are going to have short leashes on their respective starters. So that's always one of those things that you get a little bit more concerned about in higher leverage spots. If a starter gets into trouble, are you going to be able to put the big inning together? I don't think the Jays are going to have the luxury of going to town on Bryce Miller the same way they did against George Kirby, where there was a much longer leash on the Mariners starting pitcher back then.
The NFL also had a Thursday nighter, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. You didn't say they're not for real. You just said don't read too much into the record. They picked up their second loss of the season despite putting up 30. And when you look at the NFL as a whole, Todd, there is not a single team where you'd said, yep, they're the ones to beat. Am I wrong in looking at it that way?
I don't think you're wrong at all. It's kind of really become what we already knew it was, a week-to-week league. If you're trying to take a macro level view of what the NFL is, at least through the first 6 weeks, I know this isn't going to leave a warm and tingly feeling with any fans that are out there rooting for some fresh blood at the top of the standings. But the Kansas City Chiefs are the top power-rated team for me right now, and the rich only get richer if Rashee Rice, when he returns to action, can provide yet another dynamic weapon for Patrick Mahomes and company. You have to believe the Chiefs are going to go out there and try and address some of their deficiencies defensively before the trade deadline if they can. But the NFC right now is as wide open after Kansas City as I can remember. Let's see if the Ravens get things together. Let's see if the bye week allows the Buffalo Bills to sort out their myriad of issues on both sides of the ball. But the NFC is where we're seeing that real parity. I mean, you can make a legitimate case that the Rams are the best team, that the Bucs, when they get everybody healthy, are going to be the best team, that Philadelphia will eventually figure it all out. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it feels as wide open in the NFL as we have seen, which inevitably, guys, means that it's going to be the Chiefs coming out of the AFC, and it'll be the Eagles and Rams playing in the NFC Championship yet again, with a slice of Lions potentially thrown in there on top of it.
I hated every word of that, but you're probably right, Todd. Well, let's stick with the NFC and let's stick with those Los Angeles Rams. They are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars in London, England this Sunday morning, and the continued series of Sunday morning games in the NFL, which frankly I love. There's nothing better than an NFL game over coffee. They're 3-point favorites against a very scrappy Jacksonville Jaguars team right now. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I think the Jags are a live underdog, catching 3 in this particular spot. We know that the Rams are going to be without the services of Puka Nacua, and he has kind of really become the straw that stirs the drink for this team offensively. Not just what he can do as Matthew Stafford's primary weapon, but the contributions he makes in the ground game. And the one thing that we take for granted with the Rams, you see some of the gaudy offensive numbers they put up, but if they can't run the football and they get themselves into known passing situations, not going to be a recipe for success. So I think the Jags are live underdogs catching the 3. And Dan, cover your ears. I actually like this game under the total a bit at 44.5. I think Jacksonville is going to struggle. If they can't run the football against this Rams defensive front and they get themselves into known passing situations, I don't love what Trevor Lawrence has put on tape thus far, but it will be interesting to follow the storyline starting to emerge. The Jags have said they want to get Travis Hunter a little bit more involved offensively, and if that'll help open up the playbook. And eventually, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to get rid of the case of the dropsies and make some of the catches across the middle. So I think the Jags find a way to pull off the modest upset here in what could potentially be a lower scoring game than the way it's being priced right now at Bet Rivers.
Well, the highest total of the weekend is, I think it's Fox's America's Game of the Week. Cowboys and Commanders at 54.5. That's a high total.
Well, I mean, you're my guy. Are you going to make a case to go over this total, Tuesday? Because if you're not, I mean, that's going to tell me all
ask
I
you
need to
these
know.
questions, though. You tell me.
So I think the number is fair, and quite honestly, and you need so many things to go right in a National Football League game to go over a total this high that I just can't get there. History tells me with a number this big, you blindly bet it under more often than not, and you're going to end up on the right side of profitability because all it takes is the Cowboys to put together a 5 to 6 minute drive. It ends in a field goal, and you're chasing uphill all day. But this Commanders defense leaves a lot to be desired. Dallas should get the services of CeeDee Lamb back, which will make their offense that much more dynamic given what we've seen from George Pickens and Jake Ferguson. I think both these offenses could have success, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it ended up 27-24. I think the Cowboys are live in this game to win, and I do expect that this game closes pick'em or maybe even the Cowboys -1 before kickoff on Sunday.
I will say this about an under. My buddy pointed it out once. He's like, with an under, you're essentially winning like the entire game.
Always winning until you're not, Dan.
Yeah.
That is a valuable food for thought. And you know what? If you happen to be sick or need to take vacation, you need to put your buddy on in that particular spot so we can talk unders more than overs.
Okay.
Todd, let's turn our attention to a game that I find particularly interesting in the Colts versus the Chargers, and mainly because I think there's still a lot of people that don't necessarily buy into what the Colts have been doing so far and are pushing this game forward as, okay, well, what are you against these Chargers?
Colts pretty fortunate, in my opinion, to get by the Cardinals last week, 31-27. I mean, I thought it should have been pass interference on Trey McBride on the finishing drive for Arizona, but alas, the Colts escape with victory. Don't cover the closing number in that 9.5 range. Interesting storyline in this game is that the Colts get to return to the scene of the crime where they were saddled with their only loss earlier this year, where they played with 10 defenders on that 90-yard touchdown pass from Matthew Stafford to Tutu Atwell. Look, Shane Steichen has done a tremendous job. We all keep waiting for Daniel Jones to turn back into a pumpkin when the clock strikes midnight. But this is a Colts team that at least has an identity. They've been able to run the football behind a healthy offensive line and Jonathan Taylor. They're spreading it around to an underrated receiving room, in my opinion, although we'll see if Josh Downs can clear concussion protocol and be available for this game. And the Chargers, on the flip side of things, were fortunate in their own right. Yes, they did have a 26-13 lead in the fourth against the Dolphins, found themselves trailing by a point, and then it was the Lad McConkey show to get the game-winning field goal. This Chargers offensive line, for me, remains a massive concern. I know the Colts don't instill the fear of God in you when it comes to being able to generate a pass rush. But from a betting standpoint, look, I think the number is right where it should be, and no doubt should be a great measuring stick game for two teams in the AFC that would love to find themselves on the inside of the playoff picture when they're having the same discussion in early January.
There is one winless team in the NFL, the New York Jets. They play the Panthers. Do the Jets pick up win number 1?
Well, I can tell you that I'm not going to be laying points with Carolina on the road with what we've seen with Bryce Young under center and the fact that he is a much different quarterback in his own building than he is taking it on the highway. Now, the $100 million question for the Jets, like always, is how many points can they manufacture? And that job gets to be much more difficult without the services of Garrett Wilson, who's going to miss some time. So you go down that Jets roster and you try and figure out who their secondary weapons are in the passing game. Mason Taylor, the rookie tight end, is starting to show flashes, but Josh Reynolds is your true number 1. Look, desperate times call for desperate measures, and while I don't love anything I've seen from Aaron Glenn through the first 6 games of his Jets coaching tenure, I do think this is a spot where it's home underdog or pass. I haven't made the bet yet myself, but I would want no part of Carolina here. I'd feel much more comfortable, dare I say, backing the Jets here plus the points.
How about the Sunday nighter, Todd? Falcons versus the 49ers. Can San Francisco keep pulling rabbits out of the hats with this insanely injured squad of theirs? They must be the best coach team in the NFL because this is ridiculous at this point.
I mean, Kyle Shanahan trying to do whatever he can with smoke and mirrors. We saw the impact, though, of losing their defensive leader in Fred Warner last week against Tampa. I mean, Tampa was able to really find their vertical passing game, even with a banged up receiving core once Warner went out of the game. And I'm not sure what San Francisco can cobble together. It's really going to test Robert Saleh to be able to slow down, a talented tandem of skill position guys in what we saw from Bijan Robinson on Monday night against the Bills. And, of course, Drake London. But you'd like to think the 49ers can at least try and make the Falcons play left-handed. I don't care if you have to put 5 defenders on Drake London. Make Darnell Mooney, who's going to return from injury, or Kyle Pitts be the guy that beats you instead of the alpha in the room. This is a total, guys, that we've seen tick up a little bit in the wake of that performance Monday night, kind of 44.5, 45, now out to 47. And as the number comes down, I'd feel more interested in making a slight case to back the 49ers as a very short home favorite. But interesting food for thought, and of course, indicative of nothing going forward. The last 8 primetime games that we have watched in the National Football League, underdogs not just 7-1 against the number. They have won 7 of those 8 games outright, and we're not talking about short underdogs by any stretch of the imagination in those price ranges.
Leaving us with some little nibbles of nuggets. Thanks, Furzy.
It's all about the Nuggets, Toolsy. But hey, before I let you guys go, I mean, I got to get your thoughts. The Leafs are a massive favorite, or at least project to be on Saturday night at home against the Kraken. Is this where we get the Leafs letdown that we've grown accustomed to in Hockey Night in Canada in the past?
It's hard to say. I mean, we were treated to a goaltenders duel on both sides of the arena last night. They're playing. I don't have a read on this Leafs team yet, to be honest with you. It seems like some of those line combinations are maybe starting to work. If Solars maintains his heat, I can actually see this be a breakthrough game for the Leafs, or I can see a lot of people going home sad. I don't have a read on it yet, Dan.
I haven't watched a single second of Leafs hockey, so I've been so immersed in Blue Jays land that I'll get to that once the Jays season ends up with a trip to the World Series.
How about you,
Look,
Todd?
I respect it. You know what? I watched that game. I did have a ticket on the Rangers, so was not thrilled that I wasn't able to cash it right around plus $1.35 there. But it is always fun for me to watch 2 goaltenders performing at a high level. And Igor Shesterkin's had to be as good as anybody, because this Rangers team probably couldn't score 5-0 at this point right now, or locked in their own barn against an empty net. But to the Leafs' credit, I think you're starting to see glimpses of the way Craig Berube wants this team to play. He's going to do everything he can to instill that defensive style. And I think the big question we had about the Leafs coming into the year is how they were going to go about cobbling together what they were losing without Mitchell Marner offensively. And maybe they're not able to do it. Maybe it is winning games 2-1 and 3-2, leaning into a healthy Anthony Stolarz. But a fun game to watch. And I think we could be treated to a little bit more defensive style hockey against a Seattle team who's oftentimes hard-pressed to generate more than 2 goals on a nightly basis themselves.
I will attempt to tune in.
That's a lie. That is a full-blown, unadulterated lie, but you are granted a hall pass as long as the Blue Jays are playing meaningful fall baseball.
Thanks, buddy. Todd Fuhrman, our insider. Got lots of insiders. We got Babby Valentine coming on every night for the post-game show after Jays games. We have Keegan Matheson, our traveling Jays reporter. He's with us. He might be with us even on Monday, I believe. Right, Kyle?
That would stand to reason, given the enormity of the Sunday night game. It could be a series decider, or it could be just a stopgap in between Game 6 and Game 7. We're in for a treat. Dan, I'm thrilled that the game is a 6 o'clock start.
I love it.
And that's a 3 p.m. start out in Seattle, which, let's be fair, it does change the dynamics of baseball, especially this time of year, where there'll be quite a substantial shift in the weather from the daytime highs in Seattle to the evening lows they can experience out there. So I'm not sure what effect that'll have on the game, but I just love the fact that we'll be going live sometime between 9 and 10 p.m. tonight.
And what you will watch, whether you watch on the Fox feed or Sportsnet, the directors of both of those games will go into Martin Scorsese mode, because they will have sunset shots. They'll have the sun. It's going to be absolutely beautiful, just like Vladdy's home run in game number 3, in which they've put that to the music from The Natural, where the sky was just perfect. The angle was right. So I love perfect visuals for baseball, and we're going to
Yes.
get them for game number 5 tonight. Kyle, we'll talk to you after that one.
We'll see you then, Dan.